Picture a mountain road in Japan, midnight. A line of cars waiting at the top, engines idling in the cold. Turbocharged monsters, machines worth 3, 4, 5 times what you make in a year. And then, rolling up to the line beside them, comes this. A tiny, boxy, 8-year-old Toyota. Cheap, slow. The kind of car your grandmother might have driven to the store on a Sunday. The other drivers look over, and they laugh. They shouldn't. Because in the right hands, on the right road, this humble little Toyota would chase down cars with twice its power and leave them behind. It would ignite a global obsession. It would turn one man into a legend, and it would become one of the most worshipped machines in the entire history of the automobile. They called it the Hachi-Roku, and this is the story of how the slowest car on the mountain became a god. To understand the legend, you first have to understand just how completely ordinary this car was. In the early 1980s, Toyota built a small, affordable coupe. It came with 2 names, depending on the version, the Corolla 11 and the Sprinter Trueno, the one with the pop-up headlights. But the world would come to know it by its chassis code, AE86, Hachi-Roku, or simply 86 in Japanese. And here is the strange but wonderful part of this story. Even the day it rolled out of the showroom, brand new, the AE86 was already behind the times. The entire car industry was sprinting toward the future, toward front-wheel drive. It was cheaper to build, easier for anyone to drive, more practical for a family. Everyone was doing it. Even the AE86's own replacement, just a few years later, would switch to front-wheel drive and never look back. But the little Hachi-Roku held on to the old way. Engine in the front, power sent to the rear wheels, a layout the rest of the world was busy throwing away. On paper, that made it a relic, a car that was born old, destined, you would think, to be forgotten within a decade. Nobody had any idea that this so-called weakness was about to become the single most important thing about the entire car. Because Toyota gave it one final gift, a small, high-revving engine called the 4AGE. Now, it wasn't powerful, not by any honest measure. The numbers were modest, forgettable even, but this engine had a soul. It loved to be revved. The higher you pushed it, the more alive it became, screaming right to the top, with a sound that made the hair on your arms stand up. A feather-light body, rear-wheel drive, and a tiny engine that begged to be wrung out. A recipe that meant absolutely nothing under the bright lights of a showroom, and everything in the dark up in the mountains. High above the cities of Japan, there are roads that carve their way through the mountains. The Japanese call them Touge, tight, blind, brutally dangerous. A wall of rock on one side, and a long, silent drop on the other. By day, they're just quiet roads through the hills. But when the sun went down, and the cities fell asleep, a secret world came alive up there. Young drivers came to race, not on a circuit, not with sponsors, or safety crews, or anyone to catch them if it went wrong. Just headlights, cold mountain air, and the nerve to throw a car into a corner you couldn't even see the end of, faster than the person hunting you down from behind. And up here, a strange truth revealed itself. Raw horsepower was not king. On these tight, twisting roads, all that power had nowhere to go. What mattered was balance, control, the ability to place a car exactly where you wanted it, inch by inch, right at the very edge of disaster, and hold it there. And this is the exact moment. The little Hachi-Roku stopped being a relic and started becoming a weapon. Its lightweight meant it darted and danced, where heavier cars pushed wide and struggled. And that outdated rear-wheel drive, the very thing the world had mocked, let a skilled driver kick the back end loose and slide the car sideways through a corner, carrying speed that should have been impossible. The car everyone called old-fashioned turned out to be perfectly, almost magically, built for this, as if it had been waiting its whole life for these roads. And there was a word for what the very best of them were doing. As they slid through the dark, tires howling, smoke rising into the headlights, drifting. But to take it from a reckless trick and turn it into an art form that the whole world would one day copy, that took one man and one car. His name was Keiichi Tsuchiya. He didn't learn to drive on a racetrack. He learned right here, on these mountain roads, in the dead of night, lap after lap after lap, until he knew every corner like the back of his hand. And the car he did it in, the car he would become a legend in, was a black and white AE86. He could do something with that little Toyota that looked like it broke the laws of physics. He could hold the car completely sideways, through an entire chain of corners, tires screaming, smoke pouring off the rear, the whole machine balanced on a knife's edge, the entire way down the mountain. And it wasn't just fast, it was beautiful. It didn't look like a man driving a car anymore. It looked like the two of them had melted into a single living thing. The world would come to call him the Drift King. He didn't invent the slide, but he was the one who proved it could be controlled, perfected, turned into a form of art, as expressive as anything on four wheels. And here's the part that mattered most of all. He did it, not in some exotic six-figure supercar. He did it in the cheapest, humblest, most ordinary coupe on the entire mountain. And every young kid watching understood the message instantly, deep in their chest. You did not have to be rich to be great. You just needed this little car and the courage to learn how to dance with it. And with that, the legend of the Hachi-Roku didn't just grow, it caught fire. And then something happened that would launch this car from a Japanese legend into a global phenomenon. A comic, a simple story about a quiet, unremarkable teenager who delivered tofu for his father's little shop every single morning before dawn, up and down the same mountain road, in an old beaten-up black and white AE86. What the boy never realized was that those thousands of quiet delivery runs, in the dark, half asleep, had slowly, secretly turned him into one of the greatest drivers alive. The story struck a nerve. It exploded across Japan, and then across the entire planet. Suddenly, millions of people who had never set foot in Japan, who had never even heard the word Touge, knew exactly what an AE86 was. That plain little black and white Toyota became the most famous car an entire generation had ever laid eyes on. A hero, an icon, a dream, pinned to 1,000,000 bedroom walls. Kids who grew up on that story made themselves a quiet promise. One day, they would own one. A car that, just a handful of years before, almost nobody had wanted. Too slow, too cheap, too old. And now, somehow, the object of a worldwide obsession. But an obsession like that always comes with a price. Not so long ago, an AE86 was a cheap first car, the kind of thing a broke student picked up, to learn on, to thrash, to slide into a guardrail on a Friday night, and fix on Saturday morning without shedding a single tear. And today, a clean, original Hachi-Roku can sell for genuinely staggering money. Many, many times what it ever cost when it was new. Sometimes, more than cars that could destroy it in a straight line, without breaking a sweat. Stop and think about how absurd that is. People will now pay a small fortune for one of the slowest, simplest sports cars Japan ever built. Not for what it does, but for what it means. For the mountains, for the legend, for the Drift King and his panda-colored Toyota, for the tofu shop and the boy, and every single kid who ever dreamed of learning to dance on a dark road at midnight. So what does the Hachi-Roku really teach us? That the numbers were never the point. On paper, this car should have vanished. Too slow, too cheap, too old-fashioned. It broke every single rule of what a legend is supposed to be. But greatness, real greatness, was never really about horsepower. It was about feel, about balance, about a car that actually talked to you, that rewarded skill and nerve and hours of practice in the dark, instead of just rewarding a fat wallet. The AE86 proved something the world seems to forget over and over again. The best things are almost never the fastest or the most expensive or the newest. Sometimes the underdog, the one nobody believed in, the one they all laughed at on the starting line, is the one they never, ever stop talking about. The slowest car on the mountain outlived every monster that ever laughed at it. Not because of what was under the hood, but because of what it made people feel behind the wheel. So let me ask you something. Would you take the monster, all that horsepower, all that noise, or would you take the little underdog that dances? Have you ever driven a car that meant more to you than its spec sheet could ever explain? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, because that is what this channel is all about. Not just horsepower and numbers, but the machines that became legends, and the people who loved them enough to make them immortal. If you want more stories like this, you already know what to do. Stick around. We're only just getting started. I'll see you on the next one.